Okay, I think we'll begin the session, please. I know, I think we're waiting for Dr. Soumya to come. Good evening. We'll begin with the session. So first we'll invite the delegates to the stage. Dr. Hariharan, Executive Director, MSSRF. Mr. Sashi Kumar, Chairperson, ACJ. Dr. Nitya Rao, Professor of Gender and Development, University of Anglia, and an MSSRF trustee. Ms. Anupama Srinivasan, Assistant Director, REACH. And of course, our fellows, K. Rajendran, Mr. K. Rajendran from Kerala, Mr. E. Mohan from Tamil Nadu, and Ms. Emma Barrett from the US. Thank you. So this evening's session is actually rather special because we're celebrating work done by our media fellows, the three fellows from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Orissa. And before we begin, we'll first invite Dr. G.N. Hariharan to welcome the gathering.
Good evening to all. It's my pleasure to welcome the delegates on the stage and also the delegates on the others on the hall as well. Today, we are going to get the insights from the three media fellows, Mina Swaminathan Media Fellows 2023, and also from Borlaug-Ruan International Intern 2023. All of them are here to really, get the insights. Before we even get the insights, a lot of, homework, foundation staff, as well as in the field, the rural communities with whom they associated and started interacting. They have put a lot of homework, and whatever they are going to present today is the mainly the stories from the rural areas. It is the story of our, farm families and associated tribal groups from the regions where we work, especially from Kerala, Odisha, and Tamil Nadu. To make this occasion more special, we have Mr. Shashi Kumar, my neighbor, Chairperson ACJ. Sir, I welcome you, even though I missed an opportunity to meet you earlier. I look forward for that. And Dr. Nitya Rao is not a new name to Foundation, but it's my privilege to welcome her to this important occasion. She's Professor of Gender and Development, University of East Anglia, UK, and also proud to say she's a trustee of MSSRF. And we have with us Ms. Anupama Srinivasan, Assistant Director, REACH, Chennai. Welcome you, madam. And our fellows will also be there. And let's hear. For want of time, I'm not, speaking a lot. Let's listen to the experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hariharan. So just before we begin, I thought we'll give you a small introduction into this, both the internship as well as the fellowship. So the Borlaug-Ruan International Internship was started in 1998 by Dr. Norman Borlaug and John Ruan, Senior, to provide research opportunities for exceptional high school students. And this is to foster the next generation of agricultural scientists. So every year we have one student who stays with the foundation for about 8 weeks. And this year we have Emma here, who will be sharing her experience, having spent 8 weeks with the foundation. On the other side of this discussion, we also have the Mina Swaminathan Media Fellows. So this fellowship was actually instituted about 3 years ago in 2021, and it's in recognition of Ms. Mina Swaminathan's contribution to operationalizing gender and development as part of MSSR's commitment to the pro-woman, pro-nature, and pro-poor approach. Ms. Mina Swaminathan is nationally known for her contributions towards developing a holistic view on gender equality and child development, including the ICDS. And it was under her guidance and leadership that MSSRF began a gendered approach to research and development several decades ago. So the fellowship itself is an annual opportunity that we offer to regional language journalists from 3 states, in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and Orissa. And this also helps in promoting an exchange of ideas between researchers and scientists, while also strengthening a science-media relationship and partnerships. So at the end of the fellowship period, which is 6 months, each fellow here presents the work they have done and shares their experience. And we also bring out something called insight briefs, which is actually derived from the stories that these journalists write. And these briefs are later tabled to the respective departments in the government with recommendations. So in 2021, just to give you a little brief, I think in terms of topics, we had the first fellowship was it was during the COVID time, so the first one was on the gender impact during COVID-19. Following year, we had a topic again on gender transformative approaches. This was specifically looking at rural and tribal sustainable food systems. And this year, being the year of millets, the International Year of Millets, the theme was gender and millets, and we looked at linkages and inequalities in this linkage between gender and millets. So we have now the 3 fellows, actually the 3 fellows from Orissa, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu, of which only 2 are present here. The third one is delivering her baby today. So Pratibha Ghosh cannot really make it. She's in the hospital having a C-section as we speak. So she's not here to present her work. But of course, we can see a little video which actually talks about why she was motivated to apply for this fellowship in the first place. In fact, we have 3 videos, very short 1-minute odd videos, which will talk about why these journalists actually applied for this fellowship and what the expectations were like. So I'll just introduce the fellows. So you have Emma Barrett, who's, Emma, can you please stand up so that people know, yeah. And so she is this year's Borlaug-Ruan International Intern from the US, and she's pursuing her Bachelor in Arts in Environmental Studies at Yale University. Thank you, Emma. After that, we have sitting here is Mr. Rajendran, K. Rajendran. He's a broadcast journalist and a documentary filmmaker based in Kerala, and is a senior news editor with Kairali News, Malayalam TV channel. And then we have Mr. E. Mohan. He is an aspiring multimedia journalist with significant experience in print and digital platforms, and right now he's he's a retainer with the BBC Tamil media. So of course Pratibha is not here, but then she is actually a journalist based at the Bhubaneswar Center of the Pranayama Oriya newspaper. And so we have these 3 videos of the journalists, and then we will go forward with their presentations. So could you play the first one, please?
எப்பவுமே ரிசர்ச் அகாடமியா ஜேர்னலிசம் இந்த 3 டிசிப்ளின்ஸ்க்கு இடையிலுமே ஒரு கேப் இருக்கும். இது 3 சேர்ந்து வேலை செய்யும் போது வரக்கூடிய ஒன் ஆஃப் தி பெஸ்ட் ஜேர்னலிஸ்ட் அவுட்புட் வந்து நமக்கு கிடைச்சிருக்கு. ஸோ இந்த ஃபெலோஷிப் ரிசர்ச் அண்ட் அகாடமியாவுக்கும் ஜேர்னலிஸ்டுக்கும் இருக்கிற கேப்பை பிரிட்ஜ் பண்ணி அது மூலமா எந்த அளவுக்கு ஒரு ப்ரொடக்டிவான ஒரு யூஸ்ஃபுல்லான ஸ்டோரிஸ் கொடுக்க முடியுங்கிறதுக்கு இந்த மீனா சுவாமிநாதன் வீடியோ ஃபெலோஷிப் வந்து ரொம்பவுமே வந்து ஹெல்ப்ஃபுல்லா இருக்கும். என்னை பொறுத்த வரைக்கும் ஜெண்டர் அண்ட் மில்லட் அப்படிங்கிற டொமைன் வந்து இட்ஸ் கம்ப்ளீட்லி நியூ டு மீ. நான் அதில் வந்து பெரிய அளவில் ஸ்டோரிஸ் இதுக்கும் பண்ணது கிடையாது. பட் இட் ஹேஸ் அ லாட் ஆஃப் பொட்டன்ஷியல். நிறைய ஆங்கிள் ஸ்டோரிஸ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு பாசிபிலிட்டி இருக்கக்கூடிய தீம். ஸோ இந்த 2 தீமையும் மிங்கிள் பண்ணி எந்த அளவுக்கு ஸ்டோரிஸ் பண்ண முடியுங்கிறத வந்து எக்ஸ்ப்ளோர் பண்ண முடியும் இந்த ஃபெலோஷிப்பில். ஜெண்டர் அண்ட் மில்லட் அப்படின்னு எடுத்துக்கும் போது மில்லட் பேஸ்டா ஒரு சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லான மாடல் நமக்கு தேவை. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி சக்சஸ்ஃபுல்லான மாடல்ல இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்றவங்களுடைய ஸ்டோரிஸ் எடுத்து இதை எப்படி லார்ஜ் ஸ்கேல் இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ண முடியுதுங்கிறத நம்ம எக்ஸ்ப்ளோர் பண்ணலாம். அப்புறம் மில்லட் ஒரு நியூட்ரிஷியஸ் வேல்யூவான ஃபுட் அப்படின்னு சொல்லும்போது மால் நியூட்ரிஷன் அல்லது நியூட்ரிஷன் டெஃபிஷியன்சியை பிரிட்ஜ் பண்றதுக்கு மில்லட்டுங்கிறத வந்து எப்படி நம்ம வந்து ஒரு ஒரு நியூட்ரிஷன் வேல்யூ உள்ள ஃபுட்டா இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ண முடியுங்கிற பாசிபிலிட்டிஸ்ல இருக்கக்கூடிய ஸ்டோரிஸை வந்து இந்த ஃபெலோஷிப்ல நம்ம வந்து எக்ஸ்ப்ளோர் பண்ண முடியும்.
So that was Mohan speaking, giving us his idea about what the fellowship would bring to him. Can you play Mr. Rajendran's?
For me, this fellowship is an excellent opportunity to go in details about a very serious issue. We all know that this year is being celebrated as the year of millets. So, what are the importance of millet cultivation? What are the importance of consumption of millets? I want to put forward before my viewers about all the details about this issue, millet related issues. For me, it's an excellent opportunity. Second, yes, I have done some stories, but it's not related to gender. It's basically related to millets and climate change. We all know that climate change is one of the burning issues before the world. So, how this millet cultivation could sustain, especially in the days of climate change reversals in the context of Kerala. It's a known fact that even in acute drought, some kind of millets can sustain. They can resist the water shortage issue. So that kind of stories I have done. But this is first time I am going to details in gender issues and millets. Third, I have 2 story plans. My first story is related to tribal women and millets. In Kerala, especially in tribal regions, certain section of women are really depending on millets cultivation. I want to go in details. Whether is it a sustainable livelihood mechanism? Are they getting enough money? And what are the results about the millet consumption? What all are the challenges? What all are the solutions? This is my first story. My second story is about the millets and women health. We know that we are looking about these health indexes. Kerala is one of the front runner. But at the same time, various lifestyle diseases are very much in the state. People across all sections are really battling with the lifestyle diseases, especially women. So there is a school of thought that millet consumption could reduce these kind of issues, hypertension, diabetic, etc. Is it true? Is it dependable? If it's so, up to what extent? So I want to make a story out of that. I want to get the reaction from the experts, and I want to do a broadcast story about this issue also. These all are my 2 story plans.
We have the last video from Pratibha.
Hello everyone, I am Pratibha Ghosh, a journalist from Odisha. This year I got selected for Mina Swaminathan Media Fellowship 2023 for the theme Gender and Millet. Definitely this fellowship means a lot for me. Though I explore stories on millet and gender differently, but this fellowship give me the opportunity to combine the 2 individual topics in one platform. On the topic millet, Odisha is quite different from two neighboring states like Andhra Pradesh and Kerala. Here we have millet mission and also separate budget for the development of millet. Government of Odisha included millet on PDS and implement this PDS system in some of the districts. So it's a challenging topic for me to combine the two topics, gender and millet, in to influence policy. My first story is on how millet is essential to implement in the agriculture policy in a long run, and its essentiality in the in gender perspective lens. My second story is on women millet entrepreneurship. Millet is not only associated with one individual woman farmer, but also it includes the changes the mindset of women to become an entrepreneur. My aim is not only influence the policy but also implement it in the long run.
Thank you for sharing the videos. We'll now listen to the presentations. I think I will invite Mr. K. Rajendran to give his presentation and insight and share experiences on his work.
For changing. Okay. A very good afternoon. As I already explained the topic, I look forward to regions of Kerala. First of all, one of the speciality of the state of Kerala, it is one of the worst performer with regard to the millet cultivation. Its position is 20th out of all Indian states. So I have taken two regions. One is Wayanad. Wayanad in Kerala, the speciality of Wayanad is one of the tribal dominate, not tribal dominate, around 30% of population is tribals. Second is Attapadi Taluk in Palakkad. That is one of the lone tribal Taluk in Kerala. So first I went to Wayanad. Wayanad, the speciality of Wayanad is that no tribal is cultivating millet. Though the tribal population is 30%, no one is, with the support of the Mina Swaminathan Foundation Wayanad Center, we went in detail, we went to the remotest villages. No tribal today is seen as cultivating millets. What are the reasons? So many tribal people told me that there is no land. Second, water scarcity. There is a general talk that millets consumes very less water, but people are saying that no, at the initial days of this sowing, they need water. Even little water, they are not sure that they will get water. That is another issue. Third, of course, man-animal conflict. Wild animals are attacking everything, not only these millets, paddy and everything, but the thing is that once they tasted these millets, then they became addicted to millets, so they are afraid of cultivating millets. And lack of proper government support. That is the last point. After that, I went to, so Wayanad, there is not, as of my knowledge, there is not even a single tribal farmer is cultivating millets. Then I went to Attapadi. The situation is totally different. Attapadi is a tribal taluk. There are three panchayats, tribal panchayats. There, Kerala government has started a millet village scheme in 2017. There is a reason for this particular scheme. From the 2013, there were infant deaths are reported. Infant mortality deaths are reported. So, with health department and tribal welfare department and agriculture department, SC/ST department joined together, and they started a millet village scheme, basically to improve the first health of the tribal women and children and livelihood. And there, what I found that There are total 192 tribal hamlets. All the tribal hamlets, they are now cultivating millets, successfully cultivating millets. Then what are the outcome? In 2023, when we are comparing with the number of the infant mortality deaths, it's gradually reducing. It's gradually reducing. There is a school of thought, there is a difference of opinion between the agriculture department and health department. Health department saying that, no, it's the sole reason is not millets, but agriculture department saying that this is also one of the reason. Yes, it's also one of the reason. Improve the livelihood of tribes. Yes, they are getting enough money. Why? Reason is very simple. They are getting, government is procuring millet with 60 rupees per kg. With 60 rupees per kg. All millets are being, reason for the success. Why it is millet scheme successful? One, government is procuring millets for 60 rupees per kg. All millets, either little millet, pearl millet, finger millet. Once a tribal farmer is producing millets, government subsequently producing the millets, so these tribal women are getting, especially most of the farmers are women, they are getting enough money. Second, processing and marketing. There is a tribal farmers corporation. That society is procuring these millets. They are processing it. They are selling it. Their stall is there. You can go there and you can watch. There are all branded items, Attapadi branded items. They are selling it. So there is a system. Third, there is a collectiveness. It's a movement. I think that around 1,500 tribal women are part of that. There is a movement. You know that Kerala, once upon a time, the Kerala literacy campaign was there and decentralization campaign was there. Like in this Attapadi region, there is a collective effort, especially from the tribal organization, political parties, village panchayat, everybody, scientists, everybody joined together, and there is a collective movement for these millets. That is the reason for the success of the Wayanad experiment. And what are the challenges? That is the most important thing. Challenges first, whenever I am meeting any farmer, either rich or poor, woman or man, they all are concerned about one matter, that is man-animal conflict. These wild animals are attacking and they are finishing everything. Then there is also interesting innovation also. There are a particular kind of pulse. In Malayalam it is called that Arikomben Amara. That when that particular pulse is cultivating, because of its stinging smell, these wild elephants are not at all coming. So a section of the women farmers are now cultivating. In one side of their land, there is this Arikomben Amara, on the other side, millets. They are saying that their area, these wild animals are not at all coming. These are all local innovations. These kind of local innovations are there, but the major concern is wild animal attack. Second, how long this minimum support price will sustain? That is another important thing, because the millet village scheme is about to be stopped. This is not for long years, but still farmers are concerned about the MSP. They are getting enough price right now, but how long it will continue? Then my conclusion is very simple. Government, you know that Kerala is a state basically concentrating on cash crop. Government is providing adequate floor price for rubber. Rubber is one of the plantation, cash crop. Government is providing adequate supply price for coconut. Though paddy cultivation is very poor in Kerala, government is providing 32 rupees per kg. Government is procuring. Why not millet? So, government should provide adequate support to the millet cultivation. Government should procure, government should put money. And apart from that, yes, there is a movement among the, especially in the Attapadi area. It is a successful model. It can be implemented to other regions also. These all are my findings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajendran, for the very passionate presentation. We'll have Mohan now, who will present on cases in Tamil Nadu.
keep at it. Wait. Okay. Okay.
Very good evening to everyone. Every story that you do will have a gender angle to it. Is what a professor from gender studies in my university told me when I did an elective in that department. So any social stories or cultural stories that we do will obviously have a gender angle, but when it comes to farming or agriculture, it will be more. Like it is popularly known, women role in agriculture is not popularly recognized. So when this specific topic, gender and millets, is chosen for this year's fellowship, it was completely new to me, and it was actually interesting because millet, ever since the International Year of Millets were announced, there were too much of talks and campaigns about millets across country and in Tamil Nadu. Even the Tamil Nadu government has started a separate millet mission. But there have been works in millets, especially in MSSRF, work on millets, projects on millets have been undertaken for a longer time. So our focus area is in Kollimalai, Namakkal. Namakkal is well known for millets cultivation. It has more traditional varieties to it. But when we visited Namakkal and when we interacted with farmers from the tribal villages, they have been successfully doing it for almost a decade now. And how it is done? Women, they came together because one common thing which the women farmers shared with us is millet cultivation is not economically viable for us. If we are not getting enough money if we cultivate millet. So in Namakkal it is a rain-fed area. So mostly irrigation happens for a particular period of time from July, August to January. So after that they tend to migrate to other parts of the state and to neighboring states for work, and they again come back to Namakkal. So what a special project was implemented in Namakkal called Wadi scheme, which enabled them to cultivate millet along with other other crops. So they have had a way to focus on millets, and at the same time they have other means to earn more money. So this in tribal villages from Namakkal, they formed self-help groups, and through farmer producer organizations they formed a farmer producer company, and through that banner they are selling their products through stalls, and they are marketing their products along with though their major focus is on millets, they are doing additional products also. So what they expect is constant support. When we visited many of the companies in the villages, they say when we have orders we will work, and the rest of the time we won't be having any work. So their cultivation is predominantly focused on the orders they get. So strengthening their practice right from cultivation to commerce enables them to successfully focus on millet. And this Wadi scheme has enabled them, and after the scheme was introduced, the migration has started reduced. And almost every farmers that we met, they once used to migrate to other parts of the state and neighboring states, and they are running their own company, their own outlets, and they are entrepreneurs now. And one aspect of this millets is they are in Kollimalai, they are running a very unique thing called community seed bank, which enables them to conserve the traditional varieties, and they have conserved about 21 traditional varieties that are unique to Kollimalai. In one particular village called Ettadi, they are having seed banks in every villages. The farmer specifically said when this was started 6 years ago, 10 farmers came and they got seeds from them and they cultivated. And how this works is, if they get 1 kg of seeds and they have to return 2 kg of seeds back to the bank. So that way they will have a buffer stock. So when this project was started, 10 farmers, they were initially enrolled. And last year, 35 farmers, they enrolled, they got seeds from them and they got cultivated, and they are successfully doing millet cultivation. And the farmers say the numbers are expected to increase this year. So preserving traditional varieties, but through intervention has enabled them to retain their traditional varieties. The farmers that we spoke, we used to cultivate these, especially from Mettadipare, they said, we cultivated these varieties in our grandfathers and forest time. But in the interim period, the cultivation was not there. But after this interventions through MSSRF, they are regularly cultivating millet varieties. And most part of their produces, it goes for their own consumption. They say they are producing different types of food varieties from millets and they are consuming it. So it feeds them also, and the additional produce they have, they are selling it through their outlets. And one of the common needs which they told us and which they suggested is, though they through these interventions they are producing and they are not having a proper secure drying facilities to dry their products. So what they do is, since it is a hilly area, they dry their products on the road. So the most of the crops, it gets damaged. So the farmers from most of the tribal villages, they're asking for a secure drying facility so that their crops, their produces, it doesn't get wasted or damaged. And they are looking for more market opportunities. They are cultivating millets and they are producing some kind of products, value-added products through their outlets. But like they said initially, whenever there is an order, they will work. They all have their equipment. They've been provided with stores to produce their products. But when there is no proper order, their work gets affected. So what they're looking for is regular orders to keep their work and business engaged. And they are also looking to diversify more products, to produce new kind of products from millets. So that will give them a competition to compete in open market. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Mohan. We have now Ms. Emma, who will make her presentation.
All right, nice to see you all here. Thank you for coming and watching my presentation. I'm excited to tell you all about my fieldwork today. Coming to MSSRF, I knew I wanted to study community seed banks given the plethora of history that MSSRF has with seed banks. And I got the opportunity to do that for 10 days in Odisha, India, and here's what I found. So first of all, I think it's important to establish exactly what a seed bank is, given that the idea of a seed bank has evolved since its inception in the 1970s. Essentially, it's a local institution that's locally run that does some sort of variation of collecting, storing, and distributing seeds. The functions vary with each seed bank, given that not each one is the same, but some functions include ensuring timely access to seeds, providing marketing services, ensuring safe seed storage, and documenting and registering traditional varieties. My project in particular focused on investigating how seed banks interact with women and tribal groups. Women and tribal groups steward most of the biodiversity globally, and that is certainly true of India. And it's really interesting because seed banks also have the goal of registering biodiversity across the world. But we have to look at how these two institutions interact with one another and whether they're really supporting those that help biodiversity the most. To do this, I conducted a literature review, trying to survey what is the available data on how these groups interact with seed banks. And I found that there is increasing knowledge on this topic within the coming years, but the role of women and tribal groups with seed banks is still quite nebulous when you look at the literature. After conducting this review, I surveyed farmers in 8 villages in the Koraput district of Odisha. 5 of these villages had a seed bank or a grain bank with seed bank capacities, and 3 villages did not. And I surveyed both because I wanted to see the differences between seed access and seed quality with those with a seed bank and those without. All of the villages that I surveyed were predominantly tribal groups from the 5 tribes listed on the slide above, and 5 of the survey groups that I was able to interact with were women only, which I felt like was a really conducive space to talking about some of these gender issues in a more free and open environment. What you should know about Odisha agriculture is that most of it is done by hand. Agriculture in India is increasingly mechanized, but it has not reached Odisha to the extent that it has reached to other states. Common crops include paddy and millet, maize, and legumes, with paddy and millet being the predominant endemic species. And lastly, you should know that it's a rain-fed dependent environment. There is an acute lean season that limits the time of year to when farmers can cultivate enough crops, and thus there is a lot of reliance on other systems, and sometimes farmers do not grow enough to sell. So now I'll tell you about some of the lessons I learned from the seed banks. There are 5 main takeaways that I distilled from the surveys. The first being the sense of community that the women felt. I don't feel like the social aspects of seed banks should be undervalued. Women recollected fondly on the times that they were helping to manage the seed bank, doing weekly tasks, and finding that overall sense of community that might be hard without institutions like seed banks or others like self-help groups and farmer-producer organizations. The second takeaway are learning skills. This can vary widely. It can vary from learning how to use processing machinery. It can relate to negotiating and learning how to barter with private market. It can also be something as simple as learning how to measure your crops with a kilogram. There was one village that did not measure their crops prior to having a community seed bank, and now they're more able to accurately get compensation for what they sell. Third is equal access to seeds. Community seed banks amplify the individual exchange of high-quality seeds, and they distribute them to all of the members in the community. It's important to note that of the villages I surveyed, all of them said that all farmers in the villages used community seed banks, so it really is a village-wide affair. The fourth point being that women control their profit sharing. Women have disposable income that is their own to use for whatever they will. Some of them used it for household expenses, some of them used it to buy gold, and some of them used it to subsidize their children's educations to send them to better schools. And lastly, there's just the general topic of social and financial empowerment. I have a couple examples. On the right, you can see me standing with Raimoti. She is actually in attendance at the conference this year, and she's a nationally recognized farmer for her contribution to preserving different types of millets through working with the seed bank. It was through the seed bank that she was really able to amplify her work and be able to come to spaces like these, where her knowledge is only within the last 10 to 20 years starting to be acknowledged and put on par with that of bureaucrats and academics. Another example you'll see on the left of this slide is a market-ready bag of little millet. The processing and packaging technology is extremely important for farmers to be able to diversify what they sell. If you see this bag, you'll see that it's able to be sold in farther geographic ranges than just the unpackaged millet itself. It also panders to a different type of consumer, which is especially important given that there's an increasing interest in these types of products in middle-class and urbanizing areas. On the right, you'll see that there's millet processing machinery that allows farmers to process about 1 kilogram of millet in 5 to 10 minutes. And here you'll see there's a traditional mill. It takes about an hour and a half to process the same amount of millet. And women are responsible for processing it either way. So when you're investing in this type of infrastructure, you're investing in women. You're saving women time predominantly. The end result of all of these positive impacts of seed banks results in community self-sufficiency. Women are really the backbone of agriculture, so when you're empowering them, you're empowering agriculture as a whole. Self-sufficiency looks different in every way. So sometimes it's helping women make more informed choices about what to cultivate on the farm. I found in my survey that men and women both freely admitted that women have a better acumen when it comes to choosing what crops to grow for consumption and for selling. It also can look like seed banks becoming completely run, which happened in the seed banks I interviewed after 4 or 5 years. It also looks like the preservation of traditional varieties. Some of the small seed banks that I visited conserved over 30 different types of millets, and that's just for one village. And lastly, you have opportunities for farmers to present their contributions at conferences and exhibitions like this one. Again, those perspectives haven't always been historically valued, and bringing them into these spaces and giving them a keen ear and listening is really important, and it also empowers them to believe that they know their land the best and not just external sources. Now, you know the sign of a good fieldwork experience is when you leave with more questions than answers. So I thought I would mention lastly, here are some topics that I think warrant research studies of their own that I didn't purposely go to investigate, but I think are important. The first one is the motivations for farmers to cultivate both hybrid and traditional varieties. I saw in my survey that farmers typically tend to plant both, but they plant both for different reasons, and it's especially pertinent conversation at a conference like this when we talk about using traditional millet varieties. But there are a number of pragmatic obstacles to doing that. So what is the balance that we strike, and how do we know what the farmers want? The second is quantifying the increased incomes from value addition services. This comes from my conversations with the villages without seed banks. Their interest in a seed bank didn't come from wanting better storage or more seed varieties. It came from wanting easier access to like processing machinery and connections with marketing cooperatives. And I think that's very important, and I would personally be very interested to see how much farmers benefit from having easy access to this technology. And lastly, I think this would be helpful for younger folks like myself to realize a clear description of how different institutions interact with seed banks, such as self-help groups and farmer-producer organizations. I think a general outline of how those relationships could look will be very helpful for people who are just starting to enter the field. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge the people on the screen for helping make my field work possible. They made this a very enriching experience. I learned quite a lot, and I felt very welcomed, and my questions were welcomed all the way. So thank you.
Thank you, Emma. I think we've come to the moment where we have our special guest who would share a few thoughts with us. But before we begin that, I think we'll first release the insight briefs that we produced from the different states in India where the articles were developed. So we have these insight briefs from, I think, from Orissa, and I think we'll have one each. Yeah. So we'll request Mr. Sashi Kumar to kindly release these briefs from Tamil Nadu, Orissa, and Kerala. So we can just share copies. Yes. Yeah, I've got more. Yeah. So, Mr. Sashi Kumar is a well-known personality, and it is really a special occasion for us to have him here. He's an Indian journalist and media personality from Kerala, and has worked with Asianet, as we all know, and we remember him for his voice, at least from the Doordarshan from those days. So he has been with the ACJ for many years now, and also has founded and chaired the Media Development Foundation, a not-for-profit trust which is set up and run at the ACJ in Chennai. He was the first West Asia correspondent of the Hindu in the mid-80s. He has directed the film Kaya Taran in Hindi, based on a short story, and also he's currently the chairman of the Asian College of Journalism, Chennai. Mr. Sashi Kumar.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Let me first make it very clear that there's nothing special about this guest. The only thing that's special about this guest is his relationship with millet, his relationship between chalk and cheese. But I'm fascinated to see the kind of interest by fellow journalists in an area that I have such little domain knowledge of. And therefore, it is with some hesitation that I venture to speak here in what I consider to be an area of experts. The takeaways I have from the presentations I just heard from the three, Rajendran, Mohan, and also from our guest from the US, Emma Barrett, the takeaways are that this is a story about devolution, about democratization, about self-reliance, about going back to variety of traditional knowledge that was fostered and somewhere perhaps is being lost on the way. And these are, I think, very, very, very fascinating aspects of the importance of millet as a means of perhaps supplementary livelihood, as a means of main livelihood, as means of a major constituent in the food basket in terms of nutrition. What strikes me is, I'm reminded of a joke about the Irishman when he's asked whether trousers is singular or plural. He isn't quite sure, so he says singular at the top and plural below. I think India and many societies like ours are like that. We are singular in the cities and towns and metropolises in terms of our tastes, in terms of our appetites, consumption patterns, living styles. But the fascinating diversity, arabesque of India is, as you go to the bottom, as you move out into the villages of India, as you move out to the fascinating arabesque, the variety, the sheer stunning variety of this country, and the struggle for livelihood, the cropping patterns, cultures, of course, and which is why I think one of the big holes in journalism, which has persisted over the years and not been filled, one of the big blanks, if you like, is the lack of understanding of this fascinating variety and the processes at work there. We often say at the Asian College of Journalism that in India we need to move away, at least partly, if not substantially, from event journalism to process journalism, because a fascinating story of what is important, what makes a difference to our lives, what makes a difference to the context that we live in, are the processes at work there. The processes of malnutrition, of gender divide, of female feticide, of women having to walk miles even now to fetch firewood or water, of khap panchayats. And it's unfortunate that in the media we get to know about India more often than not because of these aspects of India, which are important aspects of bravery, of struggle, but because there's a rape, because farmers have committed suicide, because of disaster stories. The event, the sensational event journalism that rural reporting for the normative journalist, consists of. That, I think, is a big plight, and we need to make a conscious effort to veer away from that. And I'm happy to say that at the Asian College of Journalism, we have a trademark course called Covering Deprivation. I've just given copies of some of the product that our students have done after their visit to rural areas. Not a flying in and out kind of visit, but preceded by, underpinned by lectures, important sessions with experts in different areas, so that they go there with a fairly good understanding of the communities or the context they go to, and spend days and weeks. Anupama, who's here, is a former student of the ACJ, and she'll testify to what she did there when she was there many, many years back. And this makes a big difference for I think, journalists, because most, if not all, of these students have not seen a village before, and unfortunately 75% of them will not see a village after that, because that's how self-obsessed we are in our mainstream or mainstreamed city cocooned lives. So I think, and I must mention here that when we thought of this program called Covering Deprivation, even at the outset when we began the course way back in 2000, the first person we met to talk about it was Dr. Mina Swaminathan. And he incidentally was also the first person to deliver the convocation address of the first batch to pass out of the ACJ in 2001. And therefore, I think the moral of, I think, all that we are seeing today, and it's wonderful to hear what Rajendran and Mohan, being journalists, are doing. Rajendran, I know, has been doing exemplary work in Kerala, particularly among the tribes in Wayanad, and some of his stories have made a difference in terms of policy initiatives in the state. And I wish these were not outliers. I wish these were not exceptions. I wish at least a good segment of journalism took to this. Journalism is, as you know, about storytelling, and I was reading a book some time back by James Scott called Against the Grain. A book I think was published in 2017, where he goes into the oral, folk tale or oral myths or oral storytelling. And it's not myth, it's actually communicated down the generations. We have a tendency in terms of academic discipline to relegate oral sources or oral stories and to the margins. But we know that the text is not necessarily the Holy Grail, is not the truth. Because it's always a story of the person who wants to say what he wants to say and perpetuate what he wants to say. In history, it's always a story of the victor, not of the defeated. It's not the story of the subaltern. It's not the story of these women and men who are seeking out diversity of livelihoods in order to sustain themselves and to find better lives for themselves and so on. And this is a story about the story is actually about how grain-based power structures are being challenged. Of course, it may refer to mainstream paddy cultivation. In the Chola period, for instance, he's talking specifically about in the southern banks of the Kaveri near Tiruchirappalli, the context of what's called a Ponnivala Nadu. It's a story. It's called Ponnivala Nadu, where the Cholas used to increase to their kingdom by gaining land, probably forest land, etc., for agriculture, and therefore making it useful, making it yield. And how there was resistance against this, not only from those who lived in the forests, but also by those who wanted alternative means of cultivation, not just paddy. So there are such fascinating stories out there to be told, and there is a continuity of that situation. The fascinating thing, of course, in a negative sense about India is nothing changes. Although we think change is the only constant, but here, and we have seen this in the covering deprivation context, our students have been to a village in 2000, and if they go back to the same village in 2023, the difference is so incremental, you need a microscope to look at it. So these are, I think, fascinating aspects of our real India, is rural India, how representative is journalism, which in a country where 60-70% of its population continues to live in villages, is obsessive about the appetites, the aspirations, the lifestyles of those who live in the big cities, and devotes hardly 1% or 2% of its attention to that vast 70% of the population. It is not even representative. When Indira Gandhi was the Prime Minister, there was this whole hoax, if you like, of burying a time capsule. So those in my generation will remember that. She buried a time capsule in order to establish that India's independence and India's legacy is largely, if not exclusively, that of the Nehru family. So historians, writers, artists, it's a sampling of all contemporary expressions of culture and art and literature and so on, which was buried into a time capsule. The assumption being that if science-fictionally, a tsunami, let's say, wipes us all away, a future generation, a future civilization which comes into being will be able to reconstruct from this time capsule what India at, let's say, the dawn of the 21st century or the middle of the 21st century looked like. But imagine if you actually did that today. Just look at our media, for instance, and had representative samplings of the media across the board, print, television, online, portals, and buried a time capsule, and and something happens, God forbid. I mean, it is science fictional. And a future civilization then, a civilization which is wiped out, a future civilization tries to deduce or infer what this civilization was all about, which is there in this time capsule, because it's buried in a indestructible, shall we say, steel or copper, whatever, capsule. Would you blame that civilization or the future, those discoverers, for arriving at the conclusion that India at the dawn of the 21st century must have been a huge city-state, because there's hardly any ruralness there? But therefore we know how far from the truth, how divorced from the truth the representative reality of as it is represented, as it is expressed by the media is. So there is, I think, a big lopsidedness there. There's something very, very wrong there. And these are the stories which remind us that this is so. That the need, as I said again, to go back to a regime of process journalism, or bring that very strongly, a strong dose of process journalism to begin with, into the menu of journalism, into the diet of journalistic consumption or media consumption, is, I think, the crying need of the day. So I'd like to congratulate the fellows who have doing such exemplary work, congratulate the foundation, of course, for of course, carrying the legacy of the iconic Dr. Swaminathan forward. And I take this occasion to wish all of you the very, very best. Thank you.
Thank you, Shashi. We'll now have remarks from Dr. Nitya Rao, Professor of Gender and Development, University of East Anglia, UK, and Trustee of MSSR.
Thank you, Sangeeta, and thanks, Shashi, for those remarks. I think it gives me a place to start. First of all, I would like to congratulate all the three media fellows and Emma for very insightful presentations. Even though Pratibha was not here, I did read her stories beforehand, and I think she raises some very interesting and important issues that and which we've heard from many of the women who've been speaking also from yesterday onwards in various sessions. And that is that while women are very central to millet production, processing, they do most of the work, but I think Pratibha makes a point that they continue to be excluded from decision-making processes, even though they are the major millet farmers in terms of both their time and labor contributions. And we heard earlier in the previous session from the lady from Mandla, who also said that it's very difficult. The labor is very difficult. There's a lot of drudgery and so on. And gradually, of course, processing technologies are being introduced, particularly where there are interventions from the farmer-producer organizations and so on. And this is great. I think the two things to me that stood out across the three states was, one is the whole issue of, I think, what you said in terms of the need for devolution, for decentralization as very important dimensions. I just wanted to note here that Professor Swaminathan was actually introduced in Parliament the Women Farmers Entitlement Bill, precisely because of one of the things that the stories have found, that women lack land rights, and because they lack land rights, they're also excluded from finances, from being as members of cooperatives, and so on. And in fact, following the report of the National Farmers Commission, there was a National Farmers Policy which was prepared in 2007 and adopted by the Government of India, that said that, recognition as farmers need not be dependent on land titles, but Panchayat can say, if somebody is working in the farm and doing activity, Panchayat can recognize that person as a farmer. It could be fisher, it could be poultry, it could be allied activities. And I think this was the important role that should have been given to the panchayats. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. And Pratibha's story still shows that, the not having the land is still continuing to exclude women, despite the fact it's very visible in all our stories. We have seen how women are contributing very centrally to these processes. I think the second issue that also emerges from the stories is that post-harvest and the whole issue of post-harvest storage, very critical in terms of moisture, in terms of food safety, spoilage. We heard earlier speakers in the previous session saying that, after 2 months, if you don't keep it properly, the millets can be spoilt and so on. So these are very important issues which need, proper skills training, they need proper equipment, they need very serious attention. Ultimately, if it has to go into the market, I think some of the stories from Emma also pointed out that, and the others about the market linkages, the sustainability of orders, a huge role and responsibility, not only for the non-NGO sector and private foundations, but I think also for the government. Like I think Dr. Padhi is here, who has just entered. Odisha Millet Mission is one state which has been trying to do this and has been trying to set up millet cafes, other kinds of processing outlets to provide for women farmers. I have seen federation in Uttarakhand, for instance, of also local grains. They needed sustainable orders, and the government through the ICDS had been procuring from those women's federations, and then suddenly there was an order that now everything will be fortified. The Government of India order that we will not procure local grains for ICDS and so on, but it will be procured through the PDS, which will get supplied iron and fortified rice and wheat. So all of a sudden, when government support is withdrawn, you have about a federation of 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, many thousands of women whose livelihoods depend on it. And of course, all the other benefits that we have heard in terms of food security, nutrition, which our speakers have been mentioning. So I think the second thing is that there needs to be a positive or a supportive role for grassroots work, for local work, for women, and for community. The third point that I took away was the importance of collectives and collective action. That wherever groups have got together, wherever women have got together or men have got together, they are able to assert their agency, they're able to struggle, they're able to have a voice. And I'm so happy that in these last 2 days, almost every session, we have been listening to women and men farmers from different parts of India, and who are so articulate because of the opportunity that they have been given, the support that they have been given. This is a lesson I learned a long time back, more than 20 years ago, when I started my PhD in Jharkhand. In Dumka, I went, and I was talking on farming, agriculture, various things. In the village, I was staying there. And when I first went, the women said, no, you ask our husbands. So I said, why? I want to talk to you. They said, no, nobody talks to us. And the government people all come and they talk to the men and go away. And then I said, but no, I'm not a government person, I'm staying here. And then they said, no, but even for you, you're an educated person, and our language is very different. We won't explain, if you ask us how many kilos of fertilizer, how many kilos, we can't explain like that, but we can tell you the process. And I think, which is the time, when is the soil moist, when do you see the clouds? So we can tell you the exact process by which the farming operation has to be done, how much is needed, but we cannot give you in kgs and rupees. This is 25 years ago. Of course, they have also learned now with education. But I'm just saying that the kinds of knowledges are different, the processes are different, and I think giving women the opportunity, and especially giving them the space, as you said, Emma, through the women's groups and the collectives and the women's only collectives, really makes a difference in terms of their empowerment, in terms of their future work. I think the media plays such an important role, and Shashi, you didn't say it, but I think especially in the English language media, mainstream media and the English television, we hardly hear these voices, these stories today. We are just getting a particular kind of story. We miss the struggles, the resistances, the agency of the local people, the men and women who every day are struggling. So I would really like to acknowledge and thank all of you for bringing these stories, which are realistic, because it's not that it's a glorious thing. They confront everyday challenges, lots of injustices, but they don't give up. They continue to fight against these injustices, trying to seek dignities, trying to seek recognition, trying to seek also equality as a people, just like us. So I'd like to end with that, and thank you very much. Also, just to say that this is the third year of the Mina Swaminathan Media Fellowship, and Sangeeta mentioned it, but I just wanted to also thank, we have had a small advisory group, which included Nalini Krishnan, who's the director of REACH, and Anupama. It included Murli Krishnan, who's in Murli Shanmugavelan in the UK, Mr. Paneer Selvam, who unfortunately was not there today. We would have very much liked to have had him with us, and myself. And we have gone through a process also of working with and developing some kind of a resource pack for the journalists. We would really appreciate your feedback so we can keep improving on this process in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nitya. We'll now hear from Ms. Anupama Srinivasan, the Assistant Director of REACH, on her thoughts.
Thank you, Sangeeta. And I know I'm the only thing standing between everyone and the end of a long, productive day. So I promise to be brief. And in any case, one of the challenges of being the final speaker in any session is everyone has said what you want to say. So it's always a race to find something that hasn't been said. I just want to begin by, on a personal note, by saying that Ms. Mina Swaminathan was the first person that I worked with, incidentally, after I graduated from ECJ. And she's someone who taught me to use my journalism skills in the development sector. So that's something I think I really treasure the memory of those months that I spent working with her. And it's been a privilege to be, therefore, part of this fellowship program in a small way, at least. So for those of you who don't know about REACH, I just want to briefly say that we're a non-profit organization based in Chennai, and we work across the country primarily on tuberculosis. And our relationship with MSSRF also goes back a really long way. Professor Swaminathan was our founding chairperson in 1998-99 when we began. And earlier this year in January, Dr. Soumya Swaminathan delivered our 25th year oration on health equity. So it's a relationship that we value and treasure. And I think what we've been able to sort of do together is in 2010, REACH began working with the media, primarily the news media, to see how we could improve both the quality and the frequency of reporting on tuberculosis. And at that point, I don't think we had the kind of space for health journalism that we see even today. And it was really something we were struggling with. And now we've been, over the last 13 years, I think we've learned a lot in working with journalists. And we're very happy that we've been able to bring some of those learnings in our own small way to working with MSSRF as well. So we heard about the vision for the fellowship. We heard from the fellows. We heard from Emma. We heard from everybody. And I just want to leave you with 4 thoughts, 4 points on the sort of value of fellowship programs such as these. And I think the first thing is what fellowship programs like the Mina Swaminathan Fellowship Program and others do is they help journalists access scientific information that is deeply rooted in evidence. And I think we saw even during the COVID period that this is something that is an absolute necessity for the media, access to scientific information, to high quality data. And I think it's also important to remember that this is something that is today available mostly in English. And that's a gap that we need to bridge as well. And I think that's one reason why it's fabulous that the MSSRF Fellowship and the fellows that we work with are primarily from the local language media who don't usually have access to science. Science remains in English and so it's something that becomes very difficult for journalists reporting in languages other than English to access. The second thing, which I won't go into too much on because I think it's already been talked about, is fellowships like these also remind us that rural India is waiting to be understood by mainstream journalists. And I think both Mr. Sashikumar and Professor Nitya Rao have spoken about this, so I won't get into this. But I think this is really something that we need to work together, more outreach to editors, to journalists, to really sort of say there are all these amazing stories out there waiting to be discovered. The third thing I want to say, and this is something I think both Rajendran and Mohan referred to earlier, is one of the things we've learned from working with journalists at REACH is that once you bring an issue onto the radar of a journalist, it stays with them for the rest of their careers. So a fellow that we worked with in 2010 still continues to write about TB today, and I'm very confident. I think, Mohan, you said, looking at gender issues from this angle was new to you, right? But it's something that you will apply going forward to all the work that you do, irrespective of whether what are the different kinds of issues that you're reporting on. Finally, the last thing I just want to leave us all with to think about is the idea of intersectionality, which is certainly not new to the development sector, and it's certainly, it's deeply rooted in gender studies, the idea of looking at gender, race, caste, class, disability, ethnicity, all of these identities together. And I think at the core, what we're really saying is we can't look at any issues in isolation. I happened to catch a little bit of the last session as well, and from the presentations that all the fellows made, both in the development space, organizations, as we work on issues, we can no longer say we work only on TB, we work only on health, only on agriculture. We're starting to see reporting on gender and TB. We saw amazing stories on gender and millets. We're seeing stories on public health and climate change that someone referred to earlier. So I think we really past the point when we can look with sort of narrow lenses at any of these issues. And certainly in the journalism world as well, I think we're past the point when we can say, I work the health beat, or I only work the sports beat, and really look at how all of these issues talk to each other. And I think the fellowship program and the stories that the fellows have done this year have brilliantly illustrated how this can be done and how this is possible. So on that note, once again, congratulations to the fellows, congratulations to the MSSRF team, and thank you so much for inviting me today. Thanks.
Thank you, Anupama. I'd like to thank everybody on the dais, the fellows as well as the delegates for this being with us through this session. And thank you all of you for the patient listening. We'll close the session now. We're a little behind on schedule, so we'll bring in with the next one immediately. Thank you very much. But before we leave, we'd like to honor our guests with a small token of our appreciation. And Dr. G.N. Hariharan, our Executive Director, will give each one a millet kit. Yeah. Thank you very much.